For 34 years, I knew the name of every child who walked through my library door. I knew which ones read above their grade level and which ones pretended they did. I knew which ones came to the library because they loved books and which ones came because it was quieter there than it was at home. I knew the ones whose parents had stopped coming to parent-teacher night. I knew the ones who checked out the same book twice because they couldn't afford to own it. I knew all of them. That was my life. 34 years inside a school, surrounded by children, and I knew them the way you know the weather when you've been watching the sky your whole life. Not just what it looks like, but what it means. I retired from Knoxville Public Schools in June of 2021. 34 years. I got a card from the district and a plant from my colleagues and a dinner at a restaurant my daughter chose. And I went home to my house with the irises along the back fence and my garden and my 6 grandchildren, and I thought that was the last chapter. I thought what was left was the good part, the unhurried part, morning coffee on the porch, long calls with my daughter in Nashville, watching my grandchildren grow. I was 68 years old on the Sunday afternoon in March of 2024 when I died in my kitchen. That morning I had made biscuits. I want you to hold that image because it matters to me that you hold it. Not because biscuits are significant, but because the morning was ordinary in a way that only matters in retrospect. I had made biscuits. I had eaten 2 of them with butter and honey. I had listened to the radio while I washed the pan, and by 3 o'clock in the afternoon I was dead. That is not a metaphor. There is a medical chart at the University of Tennessee Medical Center that says so. What I thought was acid reflux had been building for several days. I had attributed the pressure in my chest to the big pot of chili I'd made on Thursday. I had attributed the fatigue to not sleeping well. I had done what I suspect a lot of women my age do. I had filed the symptoms under a heading called "Probably Nothing" and had gone on about my week. I was wrong to do that, and I am not telling you this as a health warning. I am telling you because I need you to understand that there was no dramatic preparation for what came next. There was no sense that anything significant was about to happen. I had set the biscuit pan on the counter, dried my hands on the dish towel, and turned to walk to my chair in the living room. My hands were still damp. That is the last physical thing I remember. My hands slightly damp from the dish towel. What the medical record shows is this. My neighbor Carol was called by my daughter when I didn't answer the 3 o'clock phone call we had planned. Carol came to the house, found the front door unlocked, and found me on the kitchen floor. She called 911. By the time paramedics arrived, I had been without a pulse for an estimated 11 to 14 minutes. I was transported to UT Medical Center in complete ventricular fibrillation. The team worked on me for a further 17 to 19 minutes. 31 minutes total with no cardiac output. 31 minutes in which, as far as every machine in that hospital was concerned, I was not alive. I want to stop here and be precise about something because precision matters in what I am about to tell you. I was not having a dream. I was not hallucinating. I was not experiencing the chemical byproducts of a dying brain, a theory I have heard and one I understand, and one that cannot account for a single thing I am about to describe. I am a retired school teacher's librarian from Tennessee who spent 34 years recommending books about why critical thinking matters. I did not come back from this experience to tell you stories. I came back from this experience to tell you what I saw. What I saw is why I am here. I did not experience a transition. That is the first thing I need to correct, because every description of a near-death experience I had ever encountered before my own involved some form of movement, a tunnel, a light at the end of something, a sense of traveling. What I experienced was more like the way a light switch works. One moment I was in the kitchen. The next moment I was somewhere else entirely. No hallway, no journey, no sensation of crossing, simply here and then there. And where I arrived was not strange to me. That is the part I have had the hardest time explaining to people since returning, because it sounds contradictory. I had never been there before. I have no framework for where it was. And yet the feeling upon arrival was the unmistakable feeling of recognition. The way you feel when you walk into a room that is exactly the right temperature after spending hours in the cold. The feeling was, this is what everything else was practice for. This is the real thing, and I always knew it was here. I knew immediately that I was not there to stay. I want you to hear that. I knew, not because I was told, not because a voice said it, but the way you know certain things in your bones. I knew I had been brought there for a purpose, and the purpose was not my comfort. The purpose was what I was about to be shown. And what I was shown is the reason I am telling you this. It is the reason I have been awake before dawn more mornings than I can count for the past 2 years, carrying something I did not ask for and could not set down. It is the reason I am speaking now, after almost 2 years of waiting for permission, that I finally felt lift in January of 2026. I need you to hear what comes next, not with the part of you that decides in advance whether to believe something, with the part of you that already knows something is wrong, with the part of you that has been watching the world and feeling a specific kind of dread that you can't fully name. I believe that part of you is awake right now, and I believe it is the part I was sent back to speak to. There is a system already in place. That is what I was shown first. Not a future event, not a prophecy about something coming. A system that is already present and already operating. I saw it the way you would see the electrical wiring inside a wall if you had the ability to see through surfaces. The wall looks like a wall. The surface is smooth and ordinary, but behind it, the infrastructure is already there, already connected, already running. I was shown this system in relation to children, specifically in relation to American children. I need to be careful here because I want to tell you exactly what I saw without adding interpretation that wasn't given to me. And I also need to tell you this in a way that lands correctly. What I was shown was not a single technology. It was not one device or one program. It was the architecture of systems that children already interact with every single day. Educational systems, healthcare systems, the digital platforms and devices that children have been, over a period of years, conditioned to accept as simply the way things are. The infrastructure had been embedded there long before I died, long before most parents had any reason to look at it closely. And what I understood, standing in that place, if standing is even the right word for what I was doing, because I was not aware of a body, I was aware of understanding. I was aware of being present in the way that light is present in a room. What I understood was that what I was looking at was preparation for something. The system I could see was not the end. It was the channel through which something else would move. The something else is what the title of this testimony calls the mark. I want to be careful with that word too. I am a Southern Baptist woman who has been in church her whole life, and I know what that word means in the tradition I come from. I am not telling you this testimony to start a theological argument. I am telling you what I was shown, and what I was shown used that word. When that word was given to me, and it was given to me, not chosen by me, it came with an understanding attached to it. Not an explanation, an understanding. The kind of understanding that arrives complete, the way a smell brings back a memory whole, all at once, without effort. What I understood about the mark is this: it does not announce itself as what it is. That is the specific thing I was told I had to say, and it is the thing I believe people most need to hear. It will not arrive in a context that feels threatening. It will arrive in a context that feels routine, that feels helpful, that feels in fact like a service being extended to families by institutions that have always been trusted to serve them. And I want you to sit with that for a moment before I continue, because I do not want you to hear it abstractly. I want you to think about the last 12 months of your grandchild's life, or your child's life if your children are still young. Think about what your grandchild has been asked to submit to without full explanation by a school or a clinic or a platform on a device. Think about what felt routine because you'd seen it before. Think about what you nodded at because the person across the desk had a badge and a smile and the line behind you was long. I am not asking you to be afraid. I am asking you to be awake. Now let me tell you the second thing I was shown, because the first thing, the existence of the system, the infrastructure already in place, was preparation. The second thing is harder. I was taken in that place to what I can only call a vantage point. I have no better language for it. I was somewhere from which I could see, not physically, not the way eyes work, but with a kind of comprehensive perception that takes in everything at once. I could see the relationship between the system and the children, and specifically, I could see the order in which things were intended to proceed. The children first. That was the thing I was shown that broke something open in me in a way I have not been able to close. Not because it was unexpected in an abstract theological sense. I had read the relevant passages, I understood the general framework, but I was not reading, I was seeing, I was watching. And what I watched was a design, an intentional design, not an accident, not a gradual drift, a design that had identified children as the point of entry, not adults, children. And I was given to understand why. I want you to follow this carefully, because this is the most important thing I was shown, and I need to say it exactly right. The system, whatever is behind the system, whatever intelligence designed the sequence, understood something that any grandparent or parent will recognize immediately once it is named. It understood that there are things adults will refuse if they are asked first. There are impositions, requirements, submissions that an adult will look at and say, "No, I will not do that," not without more information, not without understanding what I am agreeing to. But those same adults, those same parents, those same grandparents will follow their children into something they would have refused for themselves, because that is what parents do. That is what grandparents do. When the system reaches the child first, the adult follows, not to comply, to protect. And in the act of following, they find themselves inside something they would never have entered through its own front door. I want you to let that land. I have been carrying that understanding for almost 2 years, and every time I say it out loud, I feel the weight of it the same way I felt it in that place. This is not a theory. This is not a reading of current events. This was shown to me, and the showing came with an urgency that I have not been able to forget for a single day since. The children are the door. That is what I was shown. The children are the door, and the door is already being opened. Now I need to tell you about the timeline, because this is the part that finally broke my silence. I waited almost 2 years. My pastor asked me to wait. I waited because I trust him and because I am not a person who rushes into public declarations about prophetic visions. I am a retired school librarian from Knoxville, Tennessee. Public declarations about prophetic visions are not my natural territory. But I was shown something about time. And what I was shown was not a date in the way a calendar shows a date. What I was shown was more like what you see when you watch water approaching the edge of a counter, the moment before it goes over. You can see the approach, you can see the density building, and you understand, without anyone having to explain it to you, that the moment of going over is close. What I was shown corresponds to the period before 2027. I want to be precise about what that means and what it does not mean. I was not shown that something catastrophic happens on January 1st of 2027. I was shown a threshold, a point at which the infrastructure I described, the system that is already in place and already running, will reach a level of saturation at which the decision will no longer feel like a decision, at which it will feel like the way things are, at which opting out will require a kind of effort and a kind of sacrifice that most people by that point will not feel equipped to make. Not because they don't want to, because the moment for preparation will have passed. The window is now. That is what I was told. Not the window will come. The window is now. And the window is specifically for grandparents and parents who have children and grandchildren in the age range that this system is designed to reach. Children who are young enough to be shaped by institutions, who are in schools, who are on devices, who have been taught since they could hold a phone that scanning and submitting and logging in is simply what you do. My youngest grandchild was 4 years old when I died. My oldest was 14. Every single one of them is in that window. Every single one of them is in the age range I was shown. And I wake up thinking about their names every morning. I have a prayer list in the front cover of my Bible. I have kept it for years, and their names are at the top of it. I call each of them every single day. Not because I am afraid, because I was told that presence matters, that the relationship between a grandparent and a grandchild is one of the only remaining things in a child's life that exists outside the system I was shown. And that relationship is irreplaceable. And it is what can make the difference. I want to stop here because I need you to hear what I am about to say. I have spent almost 2 years being careful about this. I have spent 2 years measuring my words, asking for discernment, waiting for the right moment, wondering whether I was the right person to say it. I am not a prophet. I am not someone who speaks in tongues or interprets signs. I am a grandmother who was dead for 31 minutes and who was shown something specific and who was sent back with a specific instruction. The instruction was to tell grandmothers, not preachers, not politicians, not people who already have a theological framework for what I am describing, grandmothers and grandfathers, and parents who feel in their bones that something is wrong in a way the news is not naming correctly. The vision was given to me, to someone whose entire professional life was children, whose entire personal life is grandchildren, because the warning needs to come from a voice that cannot be dismissed as political. I have no political agenda. I have 6 grandchildren. That is my entire agenda. And I need to tell you about the moment I was sent back, because it is the part that is hardest to say, and I think it is the part that matters most. I did not want to come back. I want to be honest about that. I want to be honest because I think it is the thing that makes this real rather than rehearsed. I am telling you I did not want to come back because where I was, what I was inside, was more real than anything I have experienced in 68 years of living. It was not more beautiful in the way that a painting is beautiful. It was more real in the way that a thing is more real than a photograph of that thing. Earth, since I returned, has the quality of a photograph. I am here. I am fully present. I love my grandchildren with everything I have, and I wake up grateful for every morning I get to call them. And I miss where I was every single day. I tell you that not to unsettle you. I tell you that because I need you to understand that I did not come back as a choice I made. I came back as an assignment I was given. and the assignment was this specific. It was not go back and love your family. It was go back and say what you were shown. To the grandmothers, to the parents, while the window is open. I have surrendered something by telling you this publicly. I want to name that because I think naming it is part of what is required of me. I have surrendered the comfort of being someone who keeps things private. I have surrendered the approval of people who will hear this and think I have lost my mind. I have surrendered the version of retirement I imagined, the quiet one, the unhurried one, the one with morning coffee and irises and long calls with my daughter. I am surrendering all of that every time I sit down to say what I was shown. And I want you to know that I do it willingly. I do it because I was told the ears were waiting. And if you are here, I believe you are one of the ears. So here is what I am asking you to do. Not a list, one thing. Tell one grandmother, that is it. That is the entire call to action from everything I have shared today. Think right now. Do not wait until this video is over. Think now of one grandmother you know. She does not have to be religious. She does not have to have a theological framework for what I have described. She needs to have grandchildren, and she needs to be the kind of woman who would not sleep through a fire alarm. Most grandmothers are exactly that kind of woman. Call her this week, not to alarm her, not to hand her a theological argument. Call her and say, I heard something from a grandmother who died and came back, and I think you need to hear it. Send her this. Let her watch it herself. Let her sit with it the way you are sitting with it right now. The warning moves grandmother to grandmother because that is the register in which it was given. I believe that with everything I have. If something in what I've told you today has landed, if you felt something shift, even slightly, even something you can't fully name, I want to ask you not to scroll past that feeling. That feeling is information. That feeling is the part of you that already knows what I am describing is real, telling the rest of you to pay attention. And if you are willing to stay in this space, if you want to hear from others who came back carrying something specific, who were shown things about this moment in time and were sent back to say so, please subscribe to this channel. Not for content, not for entertainment. Subscribe because what you heard today is part of a larger record, and the record needs witnesses. Your being here is an act of witness. Stay. In the comments, I want to ask you one thing. Write the name, first name only. You don't have to say anything else. Write the name of the grandchild or the child in your life who is in this window. Write their name. Put it on record here, because I was told the names matter. I was told that the children whose names are being held by people who love them are not without covering. Write the name. I came back from 31 minutes of death to tell you that what is coming for the children is not coming from outside the things we already trust. It is coming from inside them. And the grandmothers are the last line of something that matters more than any of us have been willing to say out loud. I hope this reaches you in time. I believe it was meant to.